Hello, and welcome to the South Coast Artists Index, where artists, performers, and writers, as well as curators, directors, and supporters, anyone with ties to the creative community, drops by to introduce themselves to you. We'll talk about their beginnings, their vision, their passion, and so much more. The South Coast Artists Index podcast is brought to you in part by Heavenly Spirits, who invites you to celebrate the art of life and creative communities everywhere.
Hi, this is Ron Fortier with another episode of the In Focus podcast, brought to you by the South Coast Artist Index. And oddly enough, today I had done a duo podcast recording, and here we are doing another duo podcast recording. And I'm going to let these gentlemen introduce themselves as per usual and spell their names, please. It reminds me of the old What's My Line, I think it was, or whatever that show was. You had to spell your name or say your name or whatever it was. Okay, gentlemen, go ahead right ahead.
I will start out. My name is John Walker, and hopefully I spell my name correctly. It's John for John, Walker, Walker.
Excellent. Well done, John.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My name is Putnam Murdock. Not as easy. Putnam, Putnam. Murdock is Murdock.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Both of Scottish extraction, I assume.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I got some of that.
Well, yeah, and of course, there isn't a day that goes by that somebody meets you for the first time and asks you about the whiskey, right?
Exactly, and I always like it. I always like to be able to say, like Johnny Walker. I'm a little aged, though, and a blend, too.
Yeah, speaking of which, there was a guy named Jeremy Bell, who is a Scotch expert, a Scotsman, no less. And I had done one in my previous life as the marketing director for a lumberyard. We used to have to do these contractor nights, customer appreciation night. And we came up with this, we got a hold of, through a local distributor, and they said, hey, we got this guy, Jeremy Bell. He's going to start a tour in the country. You'll be like the first guys. You want him? I'm like, yeah, sure. Scotch tasting. I got started with the single malt whiskey sampler, and the Glenkitchy and the Foreign and the whole 9 yards. So this guy walks in full regalia, sporting, dirk, the whole 9 yards.
Oh.
He says, I can't say it exactly like he said because we don't know who's listening, but I love your freaking country. He said, where else in the world would you pay a Scotsman like me to come and teach you how to drink Scotch? What? You don't know how to do that? And I'll take your money. And it was absolutely fantastic. And not only was that cool, but he said there was the first time in the U.S. that the Blue Label was being introduced. And he went on to explain about the Royal House and how it was reserved for them and so on and so forth. And back then it was $80 a fifth. Should have bought a case.
Wow.
So with all that aside, gentlemen, what is it that you do? I do feel like it's like, what's my line? Yeah.
What is it that we do? We get together and we are writing, or we've written one stage play. And this is what we do together. So, and we are working on another stage play, which it kind of, I don't know, it grew, but I'll toss this over to Putnam, because Putnam's more than a writer. I would like to make sure about his musicianship and so on. So let me go ahead.
No, thanks, Johnny. So I'm I'm a musician by curse and by trade, and have fallen into teaching a number of years ago. I think there's some neat overlap with teachers and musicians. And that's how I met John, because I was lucky enough to teach both of his kiddos, his boys, who are amazing. And John sort of knew me as this teacher, musician, creative person, and came up to me one day and said, "How'd you like to write a play with me?" And I have one answer for everything in life. The answer is yes. And then I sort of, whether or not I can see the threshold of which I am about to jump, I always love approaching things that way. So so that's how we got started.
Yeah, and to just take that volley back, with my writing, I started, Guy, when I was mid to late 20s. I started writing some screenplays. I collaborated with a friend of mine, and then I did some on my own. And I was able to have the table reading of one, and then I did enter a 48-hour film festival, and co-wrote with a good friend of mine, and we actually won best screenplay in San Diego, and that was for just the San Diego region. And so my background, I did have the screenplay writing. And then I had many hours of going to the theater with my mom. And so I definitely, my theater that background, and I had produced a play in Los Angeles with a friend of mine, and then the idea for our first play Putnam and I wrote, it was in the shower. And I was talking to my son William about, hey, I said, do you know what the next, what the play is going to be this year? And he had been, Guy, what was it? He was in 6th grade, I think, and he'd been reading Moby Dick. And I said, Guy, why don't you do a play about a one-man play, person, one thing about Moby Dick, but from the perspective of the whale. And so I had this, I just like, I was joking with him. And then, and no one seeing Putnam's creativity and going, you know what? And like, maybe we could throw some music in or something like that. And so he did, he was foolish enough to say yes. And and then I wrote a few. I think I did write a couple of scenes, and then we just started working on it. So
yeah, I was lucky because I don't have experience in that necessarily. Like, I'm a songwriter, and I have directed middle school plays and stuff. So we kind of had this weird combination of experiences that we thought might work together, and it's been very fruitful, not just having actually written plays in the middle of our second, but just as a friendship and as a free therapy sessions for each other on Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
No, that totally makes sense. I mean, when I first met Jeff, he's like 10 years younger than my eldest daughter. He was a young man fresh out of college. He was going to start up, in advertising. His father was in publishing, and he had the wherewithal to see that the analog age was sliding down a slope, and digital age was coming up. And his father's publication was very, it was print, so his father's publication pretty much subsidized his establishment of the advertising agency. I was asked to come in because I had 2 small agencies myself, and I also taught at the university. And it was interesting to see how, with the demise of the publication side that was supporting him, he started to rise and was now supporting the publication side. And but the initial thing is, I don't even remember how it happened, but I just mentioned this crazy idea of this almost cultural sustainability, trying to bookmark these artists' place in history, and boom, it stuck like crazy. And then in quick retrospect, this week, someone, Mary Montero, who's been on the podcast, told me I had to watch Squaring the Circle. And it was the advertising design firm of HIP, Gnosis, as in Gnosos, the Greek word Gnosis. They're the ones that did every major album in the 70s and 80s. Pink Floyd, especially. Pink Floyd was their starting point. The point being is, these great things happen with no business plans, with no great, end in sight. And it just really evolves into a really neat kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think we're sort of, doing this for ourselves. And if people like it, that's great. And hopefully they do. But I think, we haven't put in years and years of writing together for any other reason other than we think it's fun and we enjoy it. Which has been sort of the best part, I guess.
So which of the four major categories, because I'm blanking on, I think on one of them, it's, comedy, drama, romance, but not romance as in romantic love, romance as in adventure. And then I forget the fourth one, I'm blanking out on it. So which of the categories do you guys fall into?
All
the blanked out one, right?
Yeah.
No, I think these are dramatic plays. These are anti-musical musicals.
Anti-musical musicals.
Yeah.
No, but I think, would you say, John, that these are dramatic plays?
Yeah, I would say they fall under the dramatic end of it. I mean, I can't do anything without saying a joke or throwing a joke in there. They fall because the good, I mean, of course we speak of theater and we have to go to Shakespeare, but there are funny things that happen in Shakespeare, and there are the dramas, and of course you had things that were more farcical and so on, but I would say we fall under drama.
Yeah.
Well, you do need that comic relief. I mean, there's always the bumbling fool, the totally unexpected, because if not, the nerves of the audience would totally snap on you. I remember watching, I think, the first 20 minutes of Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in the West. I don't know if either one of you have seen that.
Yeah.
There's not one word spoken through that entire first 20 minutes of the film.
Yeah.
And it is like, and you don't notice it until you start getting someone to speak. I mean, it's just absolutely Eli. Oh my God. He was not a handsome looking man. And I was going to say Eli Neiman, but it's not. He was a character actor. Rusty Staubs was in it. Mike,
this is when
Charles Bronson.
Oh, sure.
Henry Fonda. I mean, Claudia Cardinelli.
Oh, wow.
You gotta watch that movie. You gotta watch that movie.
Mark that down.
Yeah. So, what are the plots generally? Is it about man against the world, world against man? Dog bites man, man bites dog. All those subcategories.
So well, you know what? So the first one, it's based. Well, it takes place in a high school, so it's high school age kids, and the one thing in writing it, it's like I definitely always, and I guess I'll speak for Putnam, but that we wanted to make it that it was for that age, and we don't have any adults in it either. And my thought on that was to make something that is just straight for high school. And then I know you did ask about man bites dog or whatever, but I would think it's and the other one, I don't know, Putnam, human, I don't know, just getting along, getting through.
Oh, the human condition.
But nothing too severe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think just go ahead, Putnam.
Oh God, gosh, no, I was just gonna say, it's like, I think us being surrounded by teenagers, whether they're living in our home or we are in a school together, as I am, there was this idea that sort of like the arts are becoming unraveled. They're not being supported in some school communities and things like this. And nobody wants to have that happen, and unfortunately it does. But I remember, John and I were sort of talking about how vital they are, and how we sort of felt lucky that we were in a place where the arts were supported and promoted and celebrated. And the idea in the first one is, it is sort of like a coming of age story of it's like, different cliques and, like High School Musical kind of, but without the musical. But it was like these different groups, because I was, I'd watch it every day. I'd watch these kids sort of interact every day. And being in the theater department at school, I often thought that might be the best thing that they're getting, just in the sense that I know all the subjects are important, but there was something about when 40 or 50 kids put on a show together, something happens. Like there's you don't have to push the rope anymore. The rope is being pulled, the energy, there's a focus, there's a due date, there's an opening night, stuff has to get done. And there was a magic that happens kind of regardless of the product. It wasn't how great the show was. It was like how great it is to be in the process of putting on a show. And so we kind of thought, gosh, that's so magical for these young people, to be a part of something bigger than them, where it's inclusive. It's there's a sense of belonging, no matter the role, no matter how big or small. And then that's kind of what ends up pulling us through the plot of this play. So the funny thing about it is, it's a play within a play. And we wrote a play about kids writing a play. The good part is we don't have to write that one. We just have to write the one that we're writing. But it was really neat to kind of to try to harness the energy through, we sort of throw a bunch of curveballs at the audience with things people have to deal with and go through, and sort of be courageous and band together. And I think that was our intention, is like kids coming together to have a common goal and a shared experience, despite the sort of the adult involvement. And that's why we chose to not have any adults in the play at all. They're never on stage. So I thought that was kind of a really neat kind of undertone, kind of pulling from our experience, but not exactly just writing our own lives.
I mean, your experience just lit me up to my high school senior level English teacher, whose family were all theater people. He was born in the trunk on the backstage of the Strand, kind of story.
Oh my gosh!
His name was Thomas Higgins, and he had seen some of my artwork somewhere and said, "Hey, how would you like to do some sets?" Sets what?
Yeah.
Right. And he said, "We're going to be doing Oliver, and I'd like for you to submit some sketches for me." Well, when you said that, all of a sudden, all the triggers started going off in my head. I mean, something I'd never even thought of doing. And then he was doing work for what was SMU Opera, the Colberts, who were running the opera department at SMU and no longer exists. And showed them my work, and they said, "Hey, would he like to do some stuff for us?" So I did a whole bunch of set designs for them. And then I was watching this week Giving Voice, the August Wilson monologue competition. And that really made me feel happy and sad at the same time, because exactly what you said, Putnam, they're downsizing the arts. I mean, these kids really need something. Behold, the only thing greater than myself, I said. I think Kunta Kinte's father said in Roots. And it's true. I mean, you have to have this experience that's greater than yourself, because it's really about self-actualization. Now, you may not end up, treading the boards. You may not end up with a part, but you may end up as a tech. You may end up in wardrobe. You may end up in props. I mean, promotion. I mean, it is such, people, I remember someone telling me, in a movie, when you see all those words going by in the beginning or in the end, you know what that's called? And I said, yeah, those are called credits. Said, no, dear, that's payroll. Which is so true. Even the dog walker gets the because it takes this enormous group of people to produce these moments of magic. I saw One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest at SMU, which is now UMass Dartmouth.
Yeah.
It was so good that when I saw Jack Nicholson, it was like, this sucks. I know it sounds insane.
Yeah, but well, and actually, when you were talking about how many people it makes, and what I enjoy about theater is the audience is involved just as much as the actors on stage. And to be the old fuddy-dud, but it's just, we've gotten away from that human interaction. And I hope we can get more people to the theater to experience that. And you have to take the time and you have to be committed. Because I have been to plays where the audience is awful, not yelling or anything, but just the vibe that's coming from the audience. And I usually side on the side of the actors and really get involved, and I can put that aside. But sometimes it's interesting of just of how much of the melding of the two, the stage and the audience happens.
Yeah, this summer we were invited to go see Fences out in Concord. My wife's school friend, I'm lifelong friends now, Ella Joyce, who was the female lead in Rock, the television the comedy series. And I hadn't been to a live play in such a long time. And the suspension of disbelief, where there were some parts where it was, you almost needed muscle relaxants because it was so tense and the delivery was so phenomenal. And, part of your brain pops in and goes, it's not real, because you needed that, because if not, you'd be jumping up on the stage and saying, hey, who's that guy? You know what I mean? So that's what's really, and also too, my experience in high school. I don't know if you guys look into it, but in Natick High School, they had a theater around. They had an excellent theater department there. Plus, I believe they were a host for the American Shakespeare Company, American Shakespeare Festival, or whatever the heck it was. I saw two plays there, Macduff, okay, which was Macbeth, not Macduff, Macbeth, mixed up by Scotsman. Macbeth. And that is, a tense play to begin with. I mean, what Shakespeare play isn't, but to do it in the round like that, where you've got, people who are in the audience who are actors, and when on cue, all of a sudden they kick to life, that was interesting. And then Billy Budd, which I never expected this scene when they hang Billy, and you can see, the drums on deck, they're running the drums and they're putting the noose around Billy's neck. And then you see the other sailors, that forlorn look on their face, and they grab a hold of the rope and they run up the deck into the aisle in the audience.
Oh, wow.
Billy goes up into the rafters and is swinging over the audience. Oh, it's like, uh-oh.
Oh,
I might have to change my pants. I mean, but it really is. We really are missing that, and not everything can be done on not to demean the big screen or the little screen, but that live thing is really something else.
Yeah, there's all a place for it, and I don't know. Yeah, we're trying to write to TikTok, but we just can't get the. We keep on going too long.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, the current play, if it's okay to ask, yeah, what is it all about?
We can't tell you.
Oh, okay.
No.
If we did, we'd have to kill you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Brother
yeah,
used to-
yeah,
My
exactly.
brother used to work
As
for,
long, yeah,
for the government,
yeah,
and he really did have a job that was like that.
yeah. More than
Yeah,
happy, actually, because we can talk, and maybe we'll be talking some ideas out and figuring things out. So.
yeah, yeah. So, somebody, John, you mentioned Moby Dick.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, it's interesting. It's the first one has Moby Dick in there, but the second one it's a not a sequel, but it takes a character that is referred to in the first play, and actually in it's I guess we will reveal this, and whoever listens to this and sees the first play, please forget everything.
Sorry.
But there is there's a one of the characters dies after the first act,
Mhm.
and that is um, uh, the father of that character is who we follow in the second play.
Okay.
And you don't have to see either one. And then I know and Putnam has been saying how we're not writing a musical, and that's a joke in the first one, but this one has a musical element to it, with live musicians in it. And actually, and then since we go back and forth, you can tell a little bit more about it, Putnam.
Yeah, so it's kind of neat in the sense that we were almost, it's funny, as we were writing the first one, as most things do, they come out as like John will say something kind of offhanded or whatever and doesn't even mean it. And it's like, hey, that's a good idea. But it's like, God, what if the second play was about, this character coping with loss? It's like, that's kind of a cool idea. So boom, there we are. We're shot into this next play as we're finishing up the first one. And we sort of were taking inspiration from, oh gosh, I don't know. And it's what's funny is this is kind of like almost like a one person play with conversations to people, all these loved ones in his life or other folks in his life, for him to sort of get through dealing with the death of his son. And it just took on this like really unique perspective. We started to try to draw some inspiration from the stage play Love Letters, which I got to see as a kid in Boston when I was like 16. It just totally rocked my world that two people could sit on stage and read love letters back and forth throughout their whole life. And I was, like a teenager sort of being wrapped up in it and loving it. So we sort of took that approach, and we're sort of, I guess, about halfway through. We're in Act 2. And what's kind of interesting is the way we work is we'll often I joke about like our therapy sessions, but sometimes we just talk about life, and then that stuff ends up in there because we feel like, God, that was powerful. That's kind of important. I bet you people can relate to that. And then certainly our own experiences of loss and things like that end up in it. But what's neat is it's always this sort of like the journey through life with hopefully there's, like you said, there's meaningfulness, there's comedy, there's sadness, there's anger, there's despair. Sort of like you go through the whole emotional washing machine cycle. And the great thing about this play John was mentioning, one of the great things I think about this play is the fact that the musicians, there will be a 3 or 4 piece band, sort of a side stage, so not like a pit, but kind of a part of the play. And when you're first watching it, you just think that they're just a band sort of accompanying the musical, but we're going to integrate them into the play and actually create them as characters as well that will then interact with the principals on stage. So
Yeah.
it's a unique kind of journey, and again, it's like most things in my life, I can't really see what's going to happen until I get there, and then we start to realize it, and then we can kind of go back with the iron and iron it out, or we always end up rewriting things a million times, which I guess is part of the experience. But again, just like the kiddos putting on these wonderful musicals at school, sometimes it's the process that we enjoy the most, of coming up with these creative aspects, and seeing how they'll play, if they'll play along, if they'll play nicely.
Yeah, and one thing with our first act, we do have the conversations, as Putnam said, they're basically taking place on the phone, but the characters are behind, kind of like Hollywood Squares kind of see that. Not that we're putting together the staging right now, but and that's
good plot with good staging is everything. I mean,
yeah.
plot alone just.
No, and it's part, and that's kind of part of it, and then that's where the musicians come in, where there's where it's like when music is turned on, it's almost like a practical prop in there. I'm not saying the musicians are a prop; they actually are they're really part of the play. And then in the second act, they come out more, and there's more in the second act. There's interaction, actually, direct interaction with the characters on stage. And two, the way the way that we write, we didn't invent this. I mean, the first kind of where I learned is we know where the ending is, but we're definitely filling everything in to get to that ending. And it might not be exactly how we think it is, but we do know where we need to get to. John Irving, that was the first time he like always comes up with the end of a book, and then he writes to it. And it's kind of fun because we do discover things along the way. It's like, oh wow, and for me, I get kind of so focused. Yeah, I got it. I know exactly where it's going to go. And then it's always fun, especially if Putnam brings up something and it's like, oh wow, yeah, let's go in that direction with it. And then then we're still going to where we want to get to complete. But it's fun how it evolves, the evolution of
Two things before I forget. Number one, I don't know if you're aware that oddly enough, that was my first podcast today, was Ethan Diaguiar and Alyssa Botello, who are the co-founders of the New Bedford Film Festival, which will be going off April 18th to the 21st, and they're doing a 48-hour thing.
Oh, they're doing a 48-hour.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you fair warning.
Yeah. I don't know if I can do that again.
Yeah. But that always seems pretty cool. And then when you had mentioned Moby Dick, my friend Bob Brodesky, who's a painter, and we've been kicking around this idea where we want to do a psychological deep dive into the two main characters. Bob will do Ahab, and I will do Moby Dick. And neither one of us will know what the other one is painting and we have to get a curator, almost like an ombudsman, who will be the only one who'll know what we're both doing, and then put that thing together. I think it'd be sort of interesting. It's
cool.
It's like playwriting in paint, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's beautiful. I love that idea. I love that concept.
It's also one of the subjects. Moby Dick itself has become almost like a genre in itself. I think there's a person who's presenting something similar to Moby Dick from the viewpoint of the whale. Because again, with climate change and sustainability and everything else that's involved.
Darn.
But people are also finding out how deep that book is. That book is basically subterfuge from beginning to end. There's layers and layers and layers and layers of fluff, believe it or not, to hide the true point that it was an abolitionist tract. I just read something that Moby Dick is the new Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. The one thing we did do is we took the opening of Moby Dick, and the only part of the play within the play that we wrote was that part. But that was actually pretty fun to take that and do do it from.
That's kind of what we do. This play within a play is sort of like we kind of took Moby Dick and Animal Farm and put them together and wrote this double fictional play that we didn't have to actually write. Yeah. But we had to allude to the fact that this was being written in our play between two high school kids who just wanted to sort of revolt against authority and things like that. And it was fun researching and reading and pulling quotes and flipping perspective upside down to see how it plays the other way.
And by the way, and I put it in the chat, Bob's friend Mark Kiefer won a short film award for his short piece called "Or the Whale," which is funny as all heck. You've got to check it out.
Oh, okay.
There's a sight gag in there as well. I mean, it's just a fun piece. So enough with the Moby Dick, I guess, as they would say. So other than camaraderie and collaboration, what other goals do you have? I mean, one of the things that I've been noticing quite a bit, and I mentioned this to Alyssa and to Ethan, for the longest time, being a creative, and I kind of hate that term. I used to hate it even more when I was in advertising. Let's go meet the creatives. Like, oh, I got to put on my shoes, that kind of thing, because that's how they made you feel. But one of the things that the kids don't get, I mean, it's MCAS. It's like enough already. And only really the kids with endemic memory, they really have no intellect. They just have a photographic memory. So that's all wrong. But they're not exposed to these things. And, you were talking about your exposure to love letters. And John, I'm sure you have, your exposures that you had when you were a kid. And those things really stick to you all of your life. And it's amazing how many people are triggered by one singular, oh my God, I was kicked into chorus line, that one thing, and
okay, now I got it going through my head.
I know, isn't that horrible?
Yeah, and you don't want me to start singing.
Anyway, so the point is, like, for the longest time, I was like, because I taught in the comprehensive side, or what she used to call normal high school, and then you've got the vocational side, which was always looked down, these are the kids who aren't too smart. And well, if they're not too smart, why do they have to take this incredible aptitude test in order to get into the vocational school? They only take so many kids a year, and they end up being far more successful in some ways, by some measuring sticks, and much faster than a student in the comprehensive side who's going to go on to college and then go into debt, blah blah blah. So what's missing in the middle? And we've needed it for so long, is we need a junior and senior school of visual and performing arts.
Wouldn't that I always said, if I could just, if I won some lottery or something, I don't think I would, I wouldn't take off. Like, I would love nothing more than to, like, open a, sort of elementary and middle school, high school performing arts thing where teachers make a lot of money and you get the best ones there. And wouldn't it be great to sort of, like, teach differently, right? Like, sort of attack the paradigms of education a little bit differently. I think the trade schools are where it's at these days. I just took my son to the open house at New Bedford Voc Tech and I was blown away,
Oh yeah.
blown away.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, long-term goals is like, I think, you know, bringing exposure to young people, also giving them the vehicles, like, here are the keys, you know, see you later. Like, go play, go make a mess with art. It's so it's invigorating. It's kind of what I was given as a kid, but not because someone forced me to do it. I was lucky enough to kind of want to do it myself. Um, and I think that those are some of the goals. I think, you know, obviously it would be great to get our plays published and stuff like that and put them out there and see them being realized, and it would potentially give us you know, the means to do it more often. But, you know, even as me as a musician, like, I'm still saying, what do I want to do when I grow up? You know, I'm still going to chase it,
Yeah.
you know, forever and ever. So I think there's an element of like for John and I, it's just like the importance of art in our lives. We want to kind of
Right.
try to give that back, or provide a platform, a stage, a vehicle, whatever we want to call it, access to these things that we feel may be the most important things.
It's fundamental. It's not
Yeah.
a playtime. It's not a distraction, a diversion. It's fundamental.
Mhm.
And for example, just working with the kids in theater,
Yeah.
there's a lot of, I to this day, I still, when I walk under lights, I'm looking up and people say, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm trying to get a burn." "Oh, you're starting?" "No, no, 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 no. I want to see if that light's focused right." "Oh,
Yeah.
that's how you do it?" Yeah. Or when you see, and those stupid little things, you see Licos called Fresnels and Fresnels called Licos. I mean, and most people are like, what the hell is he talking about? Because you learn these things, you learn this craft, and you learn that, okay, putting in a different colored gel on a specific scene will change the mood of everything. I remember once we were doing Così fan tutte, the garden scene, and the directors, the Colberts, Mrs. Colbert, Madame Jacqueline Bazinet Colbert, insisted on a fountain. There's nothing like having water on a stage with electricity all around like that. But anyway, so I designed a set, the whole 9 yards, worked on lighting,
Oh.
and the curtain opens, and there's this round of applause, and I said to Tom, "What are they applauding? There's nobody on stage." He says, "It's your freaking set, you moron. It's gorgeous."
Wow.
I tell you what a thrill that is, and to give this to kids, because they're going to be a bunch of dull adults.
Yeah, and it's also just, yeah, I think so. But in having just an understanding of, actually, you bring up lighting, and the best lighting is lighting that you don't notice, actually.
Exactly.
But just understanding what goes into well, I mean, for us, it starts with two idiots working together to put together words to come out to something. But then after that, what does it take to, because I even think about on the business side of producing a play, and how you kind of set things up, and then with the actors and the director, and what they want to do and how they want to present, and then, and actually, when we write, is that we also talk about, okay, what is the audience experience at this time with this particular scene, and what is going on with them, where are we taking them, and because they are along for the ride. So again, I'll go back to of how everybody's involved. So it's well, it's like, actually, what I try to do at the grocery store. I go to the one with the checker, not the self-checkout, because I have some stupid joke I want to say or something like that. But actually, what I do is I want the interaction. I want the human interaction. And that's the one thing that theater can bring, is the human interaction.
Yeah, that's the key. And I'm trying to think of now which one of the I don't watch like network television. I just like stuff to feed my head. I know I did Giving Voice, Squaring the Circle. It might have even been the other one, Temple of Art. But there seems to be, and I'm reading now 40 Weeks. It's a really great book, Time Management for Mortals, it's called. And Oliver Berkman, I think, is the author. And 4,000 weeks. I'm sorry, 4,000 weeks. 4,000 weeks is the average lifespan of a human being.
Okay, yeah.
And you said 4,000. Get out of here! It's way more than 4,000. No, it's 4,000 weeks. Do the math,
Yeah.
But the point is that we have people doing yoga and all this other stuff, and how many people are really present, really in the moment? And I'm not talking about zoned out looking at TikTok, or Facebook, or doom scrolling, or all these things that have happened. There's almost like a revolution going on, similar to the arts and crafts movement, which was a backlash to the Industrial Revolution, where people didn't want mass manufactured garbage. They wanted something made by human hands. They wanted something that was unique. J. Peterman, from the J. Peterman catalog, J for John, said, when will American businesses realize that people want things people want things that make their lives the way they wish they were? So you've got the instrumental purchase versus the intrinsic purchase, so to speak. And why do people buy an expensive piece of artwork? I wish more people buy artwork. I could be doing and hang it on a wall. And you hear people say, because it spoke to me.
Yeah.
Now there's a plot for a play right there.
Yeah.
It's almost like Dorian Gray. Yeah, but
yeah. Well, they did art, the play art. So.
Yeah. So we're going to be winding down a bit.
Sure.
Past, present, future. What's the future look like for you guys?
What's the future?
Johnny, what's the future?
What's the future look like? I don't,
we've already got, I think we have our idea for the next play.
Yeah, we do. We have, I
think we're kind of like, we're locked into like a good 6-pack of plays here. Which feels great. It's daunting. It's frustrating and challenging because it just takes a long time, because we can't just hole away for 6 months and leave our families and go to Scotland to Isle of Skye, which I would like to do. But I think it's all of it. I mean, if I'm gonna be, if I'll say future, I think is keep doing what we're doing, let everything else keep informing it. So we have to just keep experiencing, again, like kind of what you said, like we want to provide experience that makes people feel like that's what their lives are supposed to be doing. So I feel like as long as I'm still active in music and chasing that and, doing all these things that keep me exhausted
and alive.
Yeah. And feeling alive and like I'm chasing something, I feel like it's like it's another outlet. It's not like this chore. It's like writing these plays is like yet another outlet to sort of channel some of the stuff where, in a song I get a couple verses and a chorus. It's not a lot of words, and I don't think I've ever written so much. Like, writing 100 pages, 120 pages of dialogue is a lot, but I think that's what's most exciting is to sort of be involved in something I never knew I was going to be involved in. And it's like that's part of my life now forever. So that's kind of the exciting part.
Yeah, I'll say, and I'll double up on the process, and it is. I mean, it's getting off of. So I had played football when I was younger. There's something about after the game and having that feeling. I don't have that feeling, but it's after a good writing session. It actually, I feel euphoric, and it's nice, and knowing that it's going to come up, and then even a bad writing session is okay too.
Yeah.
So that, it's not bad that, and with it and the sharing, actually, to be able to have ideas and to know that, there's the freedom to throw something out there that's stupid, and know that, okay, that one really dropped, and so on. And so that part of, that's something I do want to continue. But then I also want to, I would like to taste a little success of in having something that we do produced. I do. I want to see that. I'm not. When I was younger, that was all I was focused on when I would try to create, and now it's nice to be in that process. So, but I do want a little taste of it.
Well, my
And
my wife
yeah.
presented me with it's a dilemma. It's paradoxical, and she's a graphic designer by day, as she likes to say, but she's actually an illustrator, designer, which is its own kind of animal.
Mm.
And she said, "Do you want to be sustained by your painting, or do you want to be supported by your painting?" And I said, "Well, why can't I have both?" Can't. Got to pick one.
Mm.
And it's like, oh my God, how are you going to pick, one? And then coincidentally, there was a couple of weeks later, I was in a meeting and this woman said something almost to the exact same lines. And she said, when presented with that dilemma, I decided I was going to, I wanted to be sustained by my work. And she says, the moment I decided I was going to be sustained by my work
Mm-hmm.
is when I started making sales.
Mm.
I had no intention of selling because I had given up on it, and I just wanted to paint for the love of painting. And then all of a sudden, I got people knocking on my door asking me to buy work.
Wow.
And it's one of those things that I bring this up a lot. Forrest Gump is still one of my favorite movies.
Mm.
I've watched that thing so many times. There's so many subplots. There's so many details in that movie.
Yeah.
Even after watching it a bazillion times, they're like, whoa, wait a minute, I've never seen that before. How is that possible? But the idea between fate and destiny is really
Yeah.
a mind bender.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, I think there's definitely something to that. I had a vocal coach who was very much spoke the same way, and she had chosen to sustain her life with music, and it was a magical thing. And she was a vocal coach and almost just like a life coach for me when I was living in New York, and she was kind of helping me be that musician, and it there are things that manifest. I think it's also like, I don't know. Rick Rubin is all over the place now. He wrote that great book, and he's such a great music producer. And I, listen to the things he says very, intently. But he does have sort of talk about this idea, like, you just got to do it. You got to do it a lot. You got to press record. You got to take the good with the bad, and you got to make sure that you are loving it. As soon as it switches to like, how is it going to be perceived? How are people going to think? Are they going to like it? He's like, you kind of lose something. And so I don't know. I'm just sort of trying to really pay attention to that. And I hope that it sort of bears fruit. But
Well, there are
I'm
people
focused on, say
believe
again.
that there are people who believe that if you don't cook with love,
Yeah.
it tastes differently.
Yeah.
Which is kind of an interesting concept. I mean,
I like that. I like that.
You're sitting there having no idea how this meal was prepared, but why is it's almost like the beginning of Passover? Why is this meal different from any other? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's an interesting, this human thing. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not all bad.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. If you don't add a little garlic to that love, I don't know.
A lot of garlic.
A lot
of garlic. That's for sure. Gentlemen, let's see.
Are you talking to us when you said gentlemen?
We resemble that remark.
Yeah.
Something like that. I always bring up this, Barbara Walters classic to close out, and it's not, if you were a tree, what kind of a tree would you be? It's, if I gave you a magic wand each one of you a magic wand, and I gave you only one wish. It was only good for one wish. What would that one wish be?
What a great question. Johnny.
Okay, let me I'll do that. So I know it here. I'm editing myself as I speak,
Yeah,
as when, especially when Putnam and I write. And I did this with, when seeing a falling star and you wish upon it, you wish, you have a throw a wish out there. And then one day I said, you know what? It's all, every time I see a star, I'm just going to wish for love. And I guess I wish for love, and it could be, you can interpret that in any way, but
love it.
Yeah, so that, and after we're done, I'm going to rewrite what I just said, and I'll say something else.
Yeah, one wish. I mean, there's like me as like a selfish human wants to wish for my being able to play music every day. I there's something that happens when I'm on the road. I sort of feel like I'm in an alternate universe, and I feel like it's the most noble thing of playing live music for people. I feel like it's not about the money. It's about like the being sustained and buoyant with the energy that comes back from the audience. But I forgot, like right now, I just had a big old blowout fight with my son. So if I had one wish, it's that my family is happy and healthy.
Yeah.
Because life is too short to be bickering about things. But I do hope that by making art and sort of devoting my life into teaching and to making stuff, I hope to influence others, and so I hope that the ripples are wide. That could be just a wish that I hope and
as well your shoulders for your students to stand on.
Yeah, and then sometimes I get caught up in it all, but maybe for my boy to be happy right now would be good.
No, believe me, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
There's no training wheels to this whole thing. That's for darn sure.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
So hang in there with me a bit as I wrap this up. And folks, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the In Focus podcast. And today we had playwrights, John Walker and Putnam Murdock. And please accept our thanks for being with us. And we hope to have you join us again. So bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.
We'll see you next week for another episode of the South Coast Artist Index podcast. To learn more about the South Coast Artist Index, visit theartistindex.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.